smile because you'll get you still, when I upload it, you still get the funny little like look. Hey guys, we're getting started with our 4th session of Without Rival. We've been doing this online and in person, so we have people in the classroom with us, and we have the online option. So, and we've got quite a few people out, so we'll have them catching up on this. So you guys that are with us on the Facebook page, feel free, that Facebook page is private for just us that are doing this. So feel free to comment and let's talk about our homework and stuff. But here with us tonight, we got a couple girls in here and Miss Melissa online with us. So anything that's sticking out to y'all? Anything you want to talk about before we hit the video? Anything? I know Amanda said you had a rough week. Linda Vasquez wanted to share something really awesome with us. Huh? She was telling you about it? She wanted something to share? She said that it was a little too personal to share like on her Facebook because some of our husbands and boyfriends and have access to it, so I think it was more a girl thing, but something in regards to, I don't know, I'm dying to find out, but she's at a Super Bowl party. Pepper, I know she left me hanging. I was like, come on now, tell me. Huh? I know, I want to know too. But she said that the book is really encouraging her to open up and stuff, and I have to tell you, it's really 2 things that just keep sticking out of me is the comparison, which is obviously the whole underlying idea of God did not create us to be compared to each other, because it's not apples and apples. You can't compare things that are, you can't compare an elephant and a fish. They're just 2 totally different things, and that's what we are. And I keep reminding myself that, and then that our plan and our purpose is so unique that we can't create a box for it. We shouldn't create a box for it because it's not going to fit properly in the box. And then that one thing from last week is just really sticking out about what do we disqualify ourselves from? What conversations, what engagements, what status or level of play do we automatically take ourselves out of just because maybe the way we see ourselves, So I think that's pretty interesting. We're going to go ahead and get into session 4, and then we'll chat about it and see what's up. Oh, I got to share with my girls online.
In this session of Insights to a Life Without Rival, we're going to be talking about living uniquely. And a lot of people don't understand. You can think you're unique because you wear a cool outfit, but actually, to be honest with you, the way you look is the least expression of actually who you are. I want to tell an incredibly embarrassing story about me. So a couple winters ago, and it wasn't this winter, a couple winters ago, I wandered out in my flannel pajamas and my fluffy robe and my fluffy little slippers, and the sun was just coming up, and I went over to my espresso machine and I made myself this amazing drink that I wish I could make for everybody. I steamed chocolate almond milk, and then I have espresso, and then cinnamon and cayenne pepper and raw chocolate and whipped cream, and I just sat down on the sofa and I was getting ready to do a devotion when I made the mistake of turning on my cell phone. And I happened to look at Twitter, and I noticed this reoccurring theme on Twitter. People I know were all adding other people that I don't know, and they're all like, oh, thank you so much for making me part of your list. Thank you so much for nominating me as one of the top 100 women ministers. And I was like, there's a list with the top 100 women ministers. Well, I had known that there had been the top 10, the top 25. So I thought, top 100, I'm going to probably make it this time. Top 100, I am going to be on the list. And so I began to look, and I began to try to find the list, and I see this list, and I began to scan. And when you have the last name that starts with the B, you know pretty fast whether you're on the list or not. And I was not on the list. And I was just so upset. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't make the list. And so I go running like a fluffy tornado into John's office, and John's reading his Bible. I'm like, I didn't get on the list, and I'm in my 50s. I'm never going to make the list. I'm never going to be on the list. I still don't. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, there's a list of the top 100, and I never made it, and I'm going to die soon, and I'm not. And he's like, and I said, and John, people that translate my books into Spanish made the list. People that I've mentored made the list. It's like they on purpose said, let's not put Lisa on the list. Everybody I know is on the list except for me. And he was like, Lisa, I just don't feel like you're in the spirit right now. And I said, John, there's something at the end of this list that says, if you feel like somebody should have been on the list and wasn't put on the list, you can add them. John, do you want to add me to the list? He's like, I am not adding you to the list. I was like, why wouldn't you add me to the list? He's like, I'm not doing that. And he's like, I feel like there's some scriptures you need to read right now. And he started to quote me some scriptures, which I am going to unpack later. I was like, no, I am not reading those scriptures. I have the scriptures memorized. I am not doing it. So it was really cold outside, but I went outside anyway. And I called my friend, and I called Chris Kane. And I said, Chris, you cannot believe, okay, I know I'm wrong, but I'm really upset about this list. And she was like, am I on the list? I said, of course you're on the list. Everybody's on the list except for me. And she's like, well, why do you care about this? It's easy for you to say, why do you care about the list? Because you're on the list. Christine, if you were not on the list, you would care about this list. And she was like, so we went through this whole thing. And I could tell Christine was kind of like, hey, I'm on the elliptical right now. And I feel like you need to be on your knees. And I'm not going to, you don't call Chris if you want sympathy. And so I went back into my house and I was like, okay, you know what? I have more followers on Twitter than this person that made the list. Maybe I'll just make a list. Maybe I'll make a list of the top 100 and leave her off the list. Maybe that she would like that. And so I began to think about what I put on this. And the Holy Spirit was like, okay, no, you are not making a list. Then I started thinking, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to make a list because lists are wrong. Lists are evil. Lists make some people feel less than. This was a bad thing. But then he said to me, but would you think the list was valid if you were on it? It's like, I probably would have. I probably would have thought the list was a good thing. I probably would have retweeted it. Okay, I'm putting myself in timeout. So I went into my room. I kneeled down. Now, this all lasted maybe 15 to 20 minutes. And I went down. I was like, okay, God, I'm sorry. I'm being ridiculous. I wish I didn't care about this, but I do. And I'm sorry and stupid. And please forgive me. So, I come back out. I apologize to my husband. I text Chris Kane. I congratulate the people that are on the list because that's just what you need to do. And then I, went through my day. And at the end of the day, I believe Gabi sent something home for me. She was like, you've got something kind of random, or one of my boys brought it home. And I was made a plastic doll. So the day that I didn't make the list, I was awarded this plastic lucite trophy of me. And when I saw this, first of all, I'm never wearing white jeans again on the platform. But when I saw this, I was like, that is ridiculous. And God was like, now you're a plastic doll. Does that make you happy? I was like, no. And so I took a picture of the doll and I was like, Christine, you know what, you may have made the list, but I am now a plastic doll. Me and Mother Teresa and a couple other people were made into plastic dolls. And Christine was like, I want one. I was like, no, you don't. So anyway, my husband, I wanted to throw it away. He would not let me throw it away. It's behind his computer so that anytime I dare to compare or classify myself or compete, he brings out the plastic doll. And the truth is, this is a very embarrassing one-dimensional thing, which I'm now going to put away. But the truth is that there is nothing that any human can say over our life that can affirm us the way God alone can affirm us. And sometimes God will allow us to be on the outside, feeling like we are looking in, so that we step back and go inside and look for him. Because too many people are looking for what other people can give them. Tim Keller said, we want someone of ultimate glory loving us. Not just love in general. What we need is this ultimate assurance of who we are. Ultimate assurance of our worth. We need someone like that loving us. Not a list, not Facebook likes, not fans, not retweets, not reposts. We need someone we think the world of, thinking the world of us. We need the praise of the praiseworthy, which is God. But comparison definitely has a pull to it. Or am I the only woman that's ever gone to the beach and looked at another woman and asked her husband, are my thighs bigger or smaller than hers? Okay, it definitely has a pull on it. Okay, we still do it in my 50s, I'm so sorry. But it will move you away from your truest center. It will move you away from your truest self by either puffing you up or putting you down. But it will not affirm you in your strength. And then you'll be off balance and off kilter. And when you're off balance and off kilter, you'll begin to say things and see things that you'll be embarrassed about later. 2 Corinthians 10:12 warns us, not that we dare, this is Paul talking about he and his laborers talking collectively, not that we dare to classify or compare ourselves with some of those who are commending themselves. But when they measure themselves by one another and compare themselves with one another, they are without understanding. There are 3 C's mentioned here: classify, compare, and commend. Learn from me. Don't do it. All 3 of those, classifying, comparing, and self-accommodation, are anti-productive. They are destructive. They will work against everything that you want. So what happens when we actually classify? Classifying is actually defined as putting people in their place. I don't know if anybody's ever done that to you, but when they put you in a place, it actually doesn't matter what you say. You have to work really hard to climb back out of that. And once they've already decided that they put you in that place, they're not going to want to let you out of that place, because it's easy to classify people. It's easier to classify than to deal with what really might be. They put them in their place by grading, by sorting, by branding, by ranking, or by my favorite, pigeonholing. Pigeonholing, Merriam-Webster described as, is what is used to describe a neat category that usually fails to reflect actual complexities. Life is messy, and there is poop in pigeonholes. If you shove a pigeon in a hole, it is going to poop and it is going to shed. Those are not clean places. Those are not places that you want to be in. And everybody's life is messier than you know, and everybody's life is more complex than you know. And that's why God tells us, don't even try to judge it until the day. Like you have no ability to see what is in their pigeonhole. And you don't want to be classified, because when you're classified, you're labeled. And when you're labeled, you're limited. Labels will always be used to limit people. I remember a wise man told John and I a really long time ago, do not let them label you, because once they label you, then they can disqualify you. People can cut out what they think that they have labeled. It is an act of depersonalizing people. And God does not do that. He does not label us. 2nd C is comparison. Theodore Roosevelt said that comparison is the thief of joy. You think you got a great husband until you see like some movie husband, you're like, wow, my husband never does any of that for me. Well, you thought he was great at the beginning of the movie, but now at the end of the movie, he's like cuddling you, pulling your hand away, like, why aren't you more like that? You know, because what just happened? You compared and it stole your joy. It's a thief of joy. And again, we're only limited to what we know or what other people want us to see. You go on Instagram, you're like, oh my gosh, my house is a pigsty. You know, I mean, you see all these different pictures and you begin to compare yourself, but it's not a true reality. Brave women, don't dare to compare. Comparing will undermine what God has put before you. There is a hope and there is a glory of something more. But this world will pull you down to its comparison, and it will want you to climb to the pinnacle of popularity. But fame just depersonalizes people until everybody thinks they are your public property to insult, slander, or worship. And because worship is reserved for God alone, if You fall at all, they will pull you down hard. What is this mountain that we are climbing that is constructed of fans and likes and posts and retweets? It's called popularity. It is called friendship with the world. Because the truth is, being popular with people does not equate to being popular with God. God goes for a pure heart, not for a popularity contest. So we don't classify, we don't compare, but we also don't commend ourselves. Yeah, we can celebrate growth. All right, that's awesome. Yay. I can look back at my journals and say, who was this woman? Who was this woman? Yay, I'm so glad I'm growing, but I know that probably 10 years from now, look back at the journal I wrote now and say, who is that woman? Oh, she's going through menopause. But just different things. We can celebrate where we've been to the extent of God's faithfulness. What do we have that he's not given us? What do we have? What gift, what talent, what resource, what do we have that he's not given us? When you self-commend yourself, you detract from his generosity and you detract from what he wants to do. When we begin to measure ourselves by unrighteous measurements, then we lose our way. Whenever I begin to look at other things in the natural to measure myself, my connection with God slips. I'm not saying I lose my salvation, but my connection with the divine and the eternal begins to slip, and I lose my perspective. One of the scriptures my husband gave me was John 5:44, and it says, how do you expect to get anywhere with God when you spend all your time jockeying for position with each other, ranking your rivals, and ignoring God? When we define people by their temporal, we lose the ability to speak into their divine destiny. Rivalry will rob you unless you learn how to turn it around and use it for your benefit. I don't know if you know this right now. Maybe you're like a really greater Christian than me and you don't see anybody as a rival. But whether you see other people as a rival or not, there are going to be people that see you as a rival. There are going to be people that actually God will put in your life to provoke you. Because a rival is given to us to either best us or bring out the best in us. Who made Moses famous? Pharaoh. Pharaoh. God said that he raised up Pharaoh as a rival to give Moses platform and to make his name known throughout the earth. What happened with David, obscure little wilderness shepherd boy? Rival gave him position, Goliath, but winning a battle does not a king make. So God gave him another rival, Saul. And Saul was the one that refined David's character. See, everybody wants the anointing of God, but they forget that God anoints us in the presence of our enemies. God watches how you interact with rivals, and he says, I can anoint that or I cannot anoint that, because if I anoint that, she'll destroy that other person. He waits until that rivalry is settled in your heart. I'm going to tell you, at this point in my life, I've actually learned to thank God for my rivals. I have a young girl, there's certain young girls I get to meet. When I say young girl, she's probably 40, but they're younger than me, that I love, and they're building a beautiful, amazing church. And I had the privilege of coming and speaking to her at their church, and then I called her like a week and a half later just to see how she was doing, and she began to tell me about this person talking horrible about her. She said, Lisa, they said this about me, and then they said this about me, and they said this about me at this church, and they said this about this leader, and it shut this door here, and it shut this door here, and it shut this door here. And I was listening to her, and I just started getting excited. I said, oh my gosh, God is setting you up for something amazing. If you're under this much attack, God is getting ready to do something incredible in your life. And she was like, what? I mean, I actually think she wanted me to call these people and be like, that's not true. That's not, no, I know her. No, that's not true. And I said, no, you just stand back and you just be quiet, because this person, every door they try to shut on you, God's going to throw open a door for you somewhere else. And you need to understand that every door we shut on other people, we end up making our world smaller. Rivals can be the best gift. I know that doesn't make sense, but the truth is I've learned more about myself from my enemies than I have from my friends. My enemies have the ability to expose more in me than friends ever will. Friends want to give you shelter. Friends want to call, make phone calls. Friends want to punch people for you. Friends want to take you in when there's a storm in your life. Rivals want to lock you out. And the great thing is, when you get locked out by a rival, you find out God meets you there. While David was running from crazy King Saul, he met up with God in the wilderness in such a way that God could develop something in David to an overwhelming level, something called grit. They did this big test when I was writing this book. I researched it about called the grit factor. They discovered that what determines whether somebody succeeds or not is not their education, it's not their money, it's not who they know. It's how gritty they can be. They began to do these studies when they had people coming into West Point and the Air Force and stuff like that, and they decided that the grit factor was the #1 predeterminant of whether they would succeed in life or not. Not talent, not connection, not gifting, grit. And you don't get grit from friends. You get grit from rivals. And so if we can be wise women, we can flip this grit factor thing and begin to understand that God has a purpose even for our rivals. And that's why we can bless those, the curses. That's why we can do good to those who despitefully use and abuse us, because they're actually working a deeper, stronger thing in our lives than we could ever work in ourselves. The playwright Edward Burks captured this dynamic this way. He said, "He that struggles with us strengthens our nerves and sharpens our skills. Our antagonist is our helper." I don't know where you are in life. I don't know what's coming against you. I don't know who you see as a rival right now, and there are very real rivals. Part of that is because when we're looking at women, it's a very small playing field. It's a very small playing field. Don't let your rivals push you aside. Don't let them make you act like them. Let your rivals push you up. Go deeper into the heart of God. Develop a grit factor. Answer to Him. Say, I will not back down. I will not cave. I will stand strong. I will learn the lessons that I need to learn. I will walk worthy of the anointing so that when God gives me position, I won't use it to execute my judgment. I will use it to execute God's justice in Jesus' name. Amen.
I believe that I am talking to some gritty women. You need to figure out where you are gritty, and you need to enhance your gritty level. So you're going to start a conversation about where your grit is located, because we need you to excel.
All right. Okay. This one gets me excited. I like this one a lot. All right, so have you allowed yourself to be labeled or pigeonholed? Okay, Brittany's shaking her head, yeah? Anybody else feel like they've been labeled? Think so? Probably so. In the culture that we live in, it's very easy to be labeled. Do what? Being women, yeah. You kind of automatically come with some labels in our society if you're female, starting out, for sure. If so, what steps can you take? Melissa raised her hand. Yeah. Can you take to move away from these labels? Are there labels? All right, we've got general labels, but are there personal labels that you deal with personally, or pigeonholes? So you know what she's saying with pigeonhole, like being stuffed into a hole. We catch birds, so pigeonhole. I could say quail hold, because we put quail in boxes and they have only one place to go. It's a little square, and they're going in there. And they do poop. As soon as you put them in there, they poop every single time you put them in there. So she was right. There's crap in those boxes. I can tell you, those holes. But think about it. labels, sometimes we stay under the generic, but if we stop and think about our personal lives, each one of us, and y'all, everybody doesn't have to share, but if you want to share, you can. Labels that you have been put on. I know I fight with this about Elijah because Elijah's personality is very big for his age. And I tell Heath all the time, I'm very, very cautious about people labeling him because it only takes one or two people, and even if they're not in authority, to say something over someone, even at the age of 4, and it become a label on them. Well, he's a hyperactive little boy. And then someone else hears it and repeats it. Or he hears it and he repeats it. We repeat our own labels that people have put on us. I know I have since I was a child. You know, I was told from as long as I can remember that I was stupid, that I was a mistake, that I was, you know, all these things. And these labels you begin to say. So then I was like, I'm stupid. But I believed it. It wasn't just random talk. It was, that was my heart knowledge of myself, was that I was stupid. Didn't matter how many blue ribbons and trophies and straight A's, and that stuff didn't matter because that came easy to me. But I always was inadequate, and I was always stupid, and I was always up under this label. But on the flip side, some labels that we like, I'm loud, I'm bold, I'm brash. And I embrace some of these labels, but in the same time, I kind of wear them with pride and arrogance. But then at the same time, some people feel like they can't talk to me because they think I'm going to be too in your face. You know, like, let me tell you how it is. It contributed to that because I'm like, I would start to use it. It wasn't that I didn't want people to talk to me, but I wanted to come up with a persona. I wanted you to think of me as hard, as tough. And so I'd be like, I ain't got no patience for anybody like this. Or, you know, I don't have any mercy for stupid girls. And I don't like women, and, you know, that kind of thing. And it would just shut people off. But the truth was that wasn't really my heart. And I did want people to come to, does that make sense? Like some of those labels and some things are fact, as in today I may be very loud.
Some of those are like you push people away, so
yeah,
they don't push you away.
Yeah, hurt people before they hurt you. They can't get to you if you keep them at arm's reach, right? Or personality things. Sometimes we, you know, just quirkiness and stuff like that. You know, I wish Linda was here because she does this a lot. I'm just weird. And it excuses her, but it excuses her behavior to an extent, but at the same time, it degrades her down a notch in conversation. She's not weird. She's really awesome. I mean, you know, but there's that comparison because she's weird and everybody else is not weird. Everybody's weird. They're all of us are weird. Everybody is. But who determines that level of weirdness that classifies weird? It's like the normal is only a cycle on the washing machine. What's normal? Exactly. But if we can't define normal, but somehow we think we can define all these other things. You know?
What is weird?
Yeah. You can't. But like she said, if you let people label you, then they can discredit, or they can say, well, none of the weird kids are allowed to come into this group, you know? I mean, and they do. Or none of the loud ones. I mean, high school is to me a tangible experience. Like you can step back and actually look at who's classified by their labels in most parts. I was a floater, so I was like in all the groups. You know, you got those few people that can just go to all of the, I'm smoking dope one minute, and I'm with the very, very smart people the next minute, and I'm with the jocks, and then I'm with the back to smoking dope. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm hanging out with the black kids, and we're rapping and we're partying, and it's like we're brothers and sisters. And then I'm over there with, you know, the weird little hillbilly guys. I really didn't care. You know, it didn't matter. But that in itself, I mean, you can still hide behind those labels and classifications because in a way that was a classification too. Think about when you classify something. You're basing it on something. You're basing it on whether it's being a physical element or a mental element or something. But when you classify something, you're removing it from the group of the others. And I think about that. You know, we classify ourselves and we validate ourselves through the opinions of other people. This is like, this book to me, this part right here, I really like stopped and redid the chapter twice, because I was just like, how do you just over that? Like, this book's great. Her study's great. I can't wait to get all the way through it. But this is ingrained in our society. Comparison, classification, what was the other word? I can't remember. Her 3 C's. What? Commending, self-commending, getting that the accolade, that approval, stamp of approval type thing. That is so ingrained in who we are as a culture. How do we get out of that? Okay. I think what she's talking about, the how, is the grit factor. And so, all right, let's keep going, because we're going to talk about the grit. And number 2, in what areas have you allowed comparison to rob you of your joy? Anybody want to share anything specific? Motherhood. And that's huge. Huge. It doesn't matter if you birthed them or not. You are always compared to the mama next door, the Pinterest mom, the Facebook mom, the whatever. You're compared, I mean, Angela just went through a beautiful open adoption. Gorgeous. It's wonderful. She feels compared at times. We've talked about this. You are a real mom. To that. See? She's not a real mom. She loved her child ultimately to give it what she couldn't give it. But she's judged and compared because of her choice, which is, when we sit here and think about it, how disgusting and sad. I mean, what a huge personal sacrifice to do that. And when you stop and you think about just the women around you, just in this room or in our groups and our friends and our families, how much comparison when we allow comparison in our lives, and we do, we all know, we've all accepted that we do, how much is it stolen? Yeah, it's sad.
Even just with the girls and my experience with them over the years, when we first moved here, when we first got the girls, it was like, no matter what I do, I'm not going to be good enough because I'm not the real mom. And I mean, it wasn't their fault.
Was that in your own head, or did someone tell you that?
Well, the girls always used to reply to me as their stepmom and her as their real mom. And I mean, it's happened more than once. I've helped raise 24 kids in my life.
Yeah.
So it's always been like in the back of my head. It doesn't matter if you lay down your life when they don't even want their own kids. It doesn't matter. They can come swoop in and they're the hero and you're still just nobody. You know what I mean? And you do that constantly. And it has robbed me of a lot of good moments that I could have had with the girls. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it steals your focus and your heart, and just being able to be wrapped up in the moment with them. I can totally understand that. And I have a friend of mine, her whole life is like a foster mom, but they were not official foster children. It's just like this situation, very similar. They weren't her stepchildren, but like you said, you've raised 24 children. They're different people from different stuff, and you're not in the foster system. You're just in the real world foster system where uncle, cousin, brother, next door neighbor drops a kid off for a couple months with you. And it happens. And she did the best. She just blew my mind. She's such an inspiration to me. But she made a point she would say in her mind, like, I'm not their mom, but I'm going to enjoy every second of having these kids. And I used to, how do you do that? How do you separate? Because she was compared to, this was in the middle of the night, their moms would show up or their dads would show up, after she had them 6, 8, 10 months, and just, I'm coming to get my kid. And she's like, not a dime, nothing give to anybody. I mean, she's done this multiple times. She even breastfed her husband's brother's son, so her nephew by marriage, and her boy are just a few months apart. You know who I'm talking about. Just a few months apart. And they were on drugs, and they left the boy with her. And she was poor and had no money to feed. This was 20-something years ago. I know, yeah, you know who I'm talking about. And she nursed this other child and her son, because that's what you did. I mean, you did that. How would you let a baby go hungry? She couldn't afford to buy it. But she walks in a level of joy that in a way I'm envious of, but I always have wanted. She pushes me to be better, because I'm like, how do you do it? And she's like, I just don't care. And I'm going, how do you get to that place? Her grit factor is like top of the line. I mean, like, she's probably at the pinnacle of grit because she is just, I mean, do y'all understand what the grit do you get the grit factor, the just pushing it out, humping it, just, I'm going to make it happen, dadgummit. We're all tenacious in different ways in our life. Every one of us are fighters. Every one of us sitting in here. And all our women that are actually joining us that I'm aware of are tenacious in the area that we choose to be. When those areas that we choose to be are the areas we're most confident in ourselves in. You know your job. I'm not going to come in and say, Brittany, I don't think you're doing that x-ray right. You're like, you need to sit down. Have a seat. You go over there. That's how I feel in the back of the ambulance. You need to stop. No, I got this. I'm not going to your shop and telling you how to build anything. I'm not even going to try to throw around some, is that a 2x4? I'm not even going to go there because you know it. I've seen both of you guys be vibrant and just convinced that you know what you're talking about in areas that you're confident in. But where do we, when we really transfer over into the level of anointing that she's talking about, as well as the level of growth, is when we can tap into the grit in the unconfident places. Because the grit doesn't come, I love what she says, the grit doesn't come from the comfortable. The grit doesn't come, the real grit doesn't come from your friends boosting you up saying, girl, you got this, you got this. It comes from the people slamming the door in the face saying, no, you don't. And the ones that probably have the authority to say that to you. That's when the Bible talks about perseverance. The verse in Hebrews, I think it's Hebrews 11, about running the race. Hebrews 11. I held on to that, like, severely. Like, that was my lifeline, because if you read Hebrews 11, I love Hebrews 11 and 12. But if you read it first of all, it tells you that you have a race before you. Our race is easy. Does anybody step out and say, I've never ran before, I'm going to go run a marathon? No, you would die, like physically die. You have to train. You have to work, build yourself up for it. You have to compete. Our Jeffrey Cox is in the CrossFit games. He doesn't just jump up there and start throwing tires around. He trains and he builds, and he's had busted knuckles and knees and smacks in the face. And there's been a lot of dudes that are like, you were too little. And you were whatever, dude. Keep trying, but whatever. You're wasting your time. But he just keeps going at it. And he's becoming successful in it. It's the same way with us. We have to keep going.
It's the day in and day out.
At all the little choices. Every choice to get up and say, you know what, yesterday flipping sucked. But today, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to just keep going. It's that marathon. I mean, like, we've talked about labor, and some of us have had labor. And I've been a labor coach for a couple years now, too. And when you get to the ring of fire at 8 centimeters, they tell you the first sign of imminent labor is a woman saying, I can't do it. Now, you know a difference in princess that's at 3 centimeters. This is horrible. And I'm dying. I can't do it. I'm like, your baby's coming. It's about to be there. And God speaks to me so much through the concept, the science of delivery, because it's the same way in the spiritual. We are right there at the 8 centimeters. Dude, what happens if you're at 8 centimeters and you stop? Truthfully stop. There's no one there to help you. And I'm not doing it. I cannot push this baby out, and I'm not doing it. You will kill your child and yourself. That's the same thing that we do spiritually. We get to that point that it hurts so bad, or I'm just so exhausted. I can't do this anymore. I have been here 1,000 times. I'm just so tired. I don't know what to do. And you just quit. I'm just going to go to church on Sundays. I'm just going to do what I got to do to just mediocre, make a 70, just getting by, just right there. because I'm flipping tired, or I'm hurt, or I'm over it, or I just can't get over it. You're killing the dream and the purpose that God has put inside of you. The good thing is we serve a Jesus that is redemptive. So no matter how many times we try to abort our purpose and how many times we try to give up, he doesn't. That's the awesome saving grace of Jesus Christ. That's the awesomeness of what we serve and why we serve. That's so cool. But I love what she says about your grit is formed by your rivals. It's not your buddies. It is your rivals. It is those walls that you're hitting. It is those people that are saying you can't do it. Do any of y'all dream for things that are big, like bigger than yourself, like freaky deaky big? Yeah. Yeah. What? Missionary. That's huge. Your finances, where you come from, Reedsville, really? Come on, you're going to go be a world missionary from Reedsville? Missionary. Now you can allow all the people and all the doors to slam in your face, or you can get on your face before the Lord and let him develop that grit that's going to keep you going. Not arrogance, not cockiness, not let me show you how I can do it in myself. That's not what she's talking about. Grit is grinding it out, because right now you don't have the money, right? You're sitting on a nest egg I don't know about. No, you don't have the money. But grit's not in, well, maybe I'll win the lottery and I'll go be a missionary in Africa or something. Got a point. But how many times do we get that mentality that someday somebody's going to walk in and give us an opportunity, or give us a platform, or give us a free car or $1 million or whatever? We get this idea, but we forget the fact that it's our grit that's it's gonna make our way. We're gonna dig our own way with his grace and guidance, because this is the truth. When David got to the throne, he needed every bit of that grit to successfully be the awesome king that he was. It's not like God's punishing you and making you dig through the trenches because you're just a horrible person and you need to dig for this for a while. You need to crawl because you suck. No, it is developing you, because your calling needs you to be mature, needs you to be strong, needs you to deal with all of that crap that you're dealing with.
It's like you're taking the punches, but instead of punching back, you're punching back the fruits of the Spirit, like on a constant basis, and you think about it, but your grit, it's not just for you, it's for those that are around you too.
That's good.
I keep thinking about the girls, and the first 2 years I was here, I was so miserable. It was just ridiculous. I would cry all the time because I kept hearing this feedback from everybody else. Oh, you need to just go tighter or go do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ain't no better than she is, and I was at that time for 2 years, I was stepmom, and day in and day out, just taking the heat from her constantly. Down the road, I became mom. Now those two girls, they don't live that life that they used to live. They go to church, they know God, they've been they've had so many different things happen in their life, through her, through them, and then my mom coming here and Justin starting to go to church. It's through just bearing the pain sometimes, and learning to love back in the process, that God just continues to mold you, and then he's molding those that are around you in the process of doing that.
That's good. He's using it for everybody. That's the cool thing about the Lord, is that when I lost my second baby, it was very open because I was in ministry, and I had a man call me, and I was in a dark place, right? Nobody come see me. Nobody. When you lose a baby, sometimes they don't know what to say, because it's like, some people say stupid stuff like, well, God took your child before it was time. Maybe God spared your child because it was going to be born with Down syndrome. He needed your baby in heaven more than you needed it on this earth. They don't mean ugly, but they say stupid stuff. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear my child was ripped out of my womb, and it's because God wanted him more than me. Blah! That's crazy. So I was in this horrible place, and then I have old family around me that you don't talk about this stuff. Like, it's not a real child that you just lost. So it's like a medical procedure almost in a way. And it's down there kind of medical procedure. So it's like talking about a hysterectomy. You don't talk about it. Both of my grandmas were like, why aren't you off the couch? 3 days after my DNC. Well, then I had an allergic reaction to the medicine. So it actually broke my back down type thing, broke my nerves down in my back, and I could not stand. It was crazy. So anyways, I'm in a low place. And this guy, this man, married man, friend of ours in the ministry, he called me. He said, I've been watching you, and your pain has taught me so much. And he said, I'm not even going to try to say, that I understand where you're at, because that would be stupid because I'm a man. But watching you hold on to God by the white of your fingernails in the midst of the pain and in the midst of what felt like everything, every time I turned around, every day, it was like another thing. You lose your baby. And then I had this horrible DNC because my miscarriage was like 3 days long. And then I had the DNC. And then I had the allergic reaction on top of it. Then I had nobody come. Everybody fell off the face of the earth all of a sudden. And they didn't know what to say. I had to come to a grip with that. But he said, keep doing what you're doing because people are watching you. And it wasn't judgment. He wasn't judging me. He was watching how I was responding in the pain. Because it was just like you said, like in the battle, they were watching me take these blows and they were ready for me to either lay down and die kind of thing, just give it or hit back. And freak out and lash out.
And you're like everybody else when you do that.
That's right. And what does that testify to God's grace and love and mercy? Is my faith only as big as he can keep my children alive? If that's all he can do, and then I lose my faith after a horrible situation. Granted, it's horrible. I'm not discrediting it. But they're watching you, just like you said, your kids are benefiting from it. And I'll never forget that. And I remember I wrote a blog about the 10 things I learned during my miscarriage. And one of them was, your pain is never just for you. Never. It has a purpose. And it can teach or it can set people back. Because everybody in the back of their mind is watching. It doesn't matter if you're in leadership or not, is watching the next Christian going, are they going to fall? Are they going to break in the middle of this? But when you don't and you give God the glory, then he gets to glorify you. He will glorify you in that.
And if you say you're a Christian and things like that hit you before watching you, you're an example.
Yeah.
They're like, well, is she going to act like the world? Is she going to act like, well, see, that's why I'm not a Christian.
That's exactly right. Waiting for you to fall.
Yeah.
Like she said, they wait for you to fall and then they take you with them when they do. But also, when that grit, that in those things, every day, it's that grit that's built. And not just in the big things, like obviously you were in the everyday, that slow, steady punch in the face. I remember the Lord showing me a vision in my head because I'm violent by nature. I mean, my mind's violent by nature. My heart's violent. I'm just violent. I really am. And he showed me in a dream, boxers, like professional boxers. Do you know, like to get to a certain level of boxing, to actually sustain the blows, you have to be hit so many times in the face that your skin is calloused. Yeah. So if you watch training, the whole training is not just ducking and weaving and learning how to hit. The training is actually getting hit. And it toughens up that skin, especially around the eyes right here, because you got the bones right here. So it's very easy to bust these open. They do put a little bit of Vaseline on there so it slide off. But when you get Mike Tyson punched, you better have some thick skin because your skin is just busting open, right? But it's the steady, constant pounding that actually brings them higher up. It's not so much their skills. It's their ability to withstand the blows. And I'm like, you know what? I used to love UFC fighting. Love it. It's not good for me now. It feeds something in me that needs to die. But I'm like, yeah, get everybody, whatever. I love UFC fighting. Loved it. And, sometimes it was not the most graceful, the fastest. It was not even the most talented fighter. It was the one that could just hold out long enough. that could take enough crazy blows to the face and the head, and he won. And I'm like, sometimes that seems like it's life. It's not by our abilities and our thing. It's just, do we have enough grit to say, I'm not quitting. You can try to kick me out. You can try to lie to me. And I love what she said to that lady, the woman pastor, where she got excited for her, which was probably not the friendly thing that she was wanting. It's just, like, go tell them, But there was so much truth in it because she was outside looking in. So she could see God setting you up for something big. But she's like, just be quiet. That is the best thing. Just be quiet. Because if you're right and you're not at fault, if that woman went out, no, let me tell you all the truth. Let me tell you all the truth. It would be that, yeah. He say, she say, that kind of stuff. But when she's quiet and she trusts in the Lord to be her vindicator, the Lord will do it way better than anything we can do. I'm telling y'all, I shared this the other day when I was preaching. The Lord so showed me this in real life. I had no clue there was 4 people in the church just blasting me when I first barely started in leadership. I mean, I was just like showing up to, help clean kind of stuff, not even like in leadership. So I had no clue, because my head was so caught up in the Jesus cloud, and I was so just, I was a super Jesus freak. Me and 2 of my friends, that's what we called each other, super Jesus freak friends. That's just what it was. I was just about Jesus. So I'm just doing my thing. I had no clue. I had an entourage that absolutely hated my guts, that were my friends, that were, hey girl, what you doing? All that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know it. So I'm staying so lost in the Lord because it's just awesome at this point, One Sunday, Pastor John preaches. I can't even remember what he preached about, but apparently the Holy Spirit was moving. 3 of them come to me after church and said, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, okay. Now I love these people. I really care about, because I thought we were legitimately friends. And we were. They were just caught up in a moment of ridiculousness. And I remember the first one said, I need to ask for your forgiveness. And I was like, you ain't done nothing. What are you doing? He's like, oh, yes, I have done something. I'm like, what have you done? He's like, I have been talking so bad about you. What? And I was just like, what? And he's like, no, you don't understand. I have been blasting you to the board, to like people, that could say, no, she can't be youth leader or whatever. Not that I was even looking for a position, but blasting me to people that had some authority. I was like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, yeah, I forgive you, because you're taking it back the whole, you're learning it all at one time kind of thing. 2 women on the same day, different times, and did not know he come to me about the same thing. They were talking to other people about me, blasting me, trashing me. And I had to, when I walked away at the end of the day, I'm like, did this really happen? I learned this. I had to walk in forgiveness towards them, because now the ball was back in my court. Now I had knowledge of what they had done to me. So instead, for a minute, I was like, well, I need to go tell all those people that they told that that's not who I am. And that's not how that's not right. And I remember the Lord telling me, I will vindicate you. And I just, okay. And I walked it off. And in that, Pastor John told me years later, he didn't know specifically that that's what he was talking to me about, or that I knew really, but he said, you didn't ever know, but I had to fight for you in the beginning, because nobody here wanted to accept you and allow you in kind of the group. Now, we had a way different church back then, first of all, way different board, just way different. And it was very, very different than what it is now. But I knew what he was saying was, when I was quiet and I had the right to jump and scream and fight, that was when the Lord was making my way. He was paving my way for this right here. In essence, right now, it's like Pastor John, the board, but in essence, I'm second in command, like not bragging. I'm just saying, like, if he doesn't show up Sunday, y'all calling me, that's just how it is. But 7-8 years ago, never, ever, wasn't even on the radar. Wasn't even like, oh, this is what I want to be when I grow up. No. But God started just putting stuff in place, and he started with rivals. And there was times I thought it was an attack because I was a crappy person, because I was this whore that come off the street, because that's what it started with. because I was, you know, on drugs and I had this past that was just not churchy. You know, it was pretty nasty. And I could not represent anything but that in this community. Because believe me, they blasted me on my community presence too, because that's what everybody knows me as, right? And all this has happened over the years. And now it's like, there's this book that I'm like, that's happened. That's real. That's real stuff. That's true. I try to tell the teens all the time that God will vindicate you if you let him. But when we step into that place of trying to retaliate or trying to, you know, say, no, I'm right and you're wrong, we literally step in his shoes. We take in, God, oh, you need to sit up here. I've got to get this. Hold up. Let me show you.
And when you let him, it's like he makes this way.
Yes.
It's just, you know, like.
It's better than you could ever do it.
With the girls, you know, there come a point in the midst of that 2 years, right at the end of it, she called the ex call, and she needed a ride because Maddie needed to go to ball practice. So I got ready and I told Justin, I'm going to go give her a ride. And he said, "You're what?"
Give the ex-wife a ride.
Yeah, he like whipped out. And I mean, she is like totally nothing but
trouble.
And I go up there and I take her ride, and she's just sitting there in the truck, just like.
Is she gonna stab me?
But
oh shoot, we all gonna die.
That, we ended up at the police station.
But nobody's head was busted in or nothing. Okay.
A couple weeks after that, we ended up at the police station. She said some ugly things. I walked out and I was just mad. And I was driving down the road and I was by myself and I was just crying. And I was like, Lord, I just can't take this anymore. It had been 2 years of daily. And I wrote about her apartment and I was like, Lord, I so badly just want to I know the girls aren't there. I just want to wreck into the front door and just be done with it. And I went home, and a couple of weeks later, she was doing a lot of dirty stuff. She went to prison for 4 years.
Wow.
Just a couple, but it was like, Lord,
wow.
It was like I threw up my hands and I was like, I can't do this anymore. You know, this is just too much. And it was like, when you try your best to do things his way, he will make a way regardless. And he did. And then even going back to court, me and Justin didn't say not one thing. We sat in court, our attorney said everything, and it's like
it was handled.
Yeah.
You know, I think
I just got to say, and I am mama, y'all.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not stepmama. I'm not nothing.
I've never heard them call you anything but mama. Why would I? I wouldn't know. If they called you stepmama, I'd be like, who are you talking
to?
to?
This is like a long journey.
Wow.
It took 2 years of nothing but pain to get there.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's fueled by love.
Yeah.
You know, that's and which is why it hurts so bad.
You know, because they're seeing so much of their life in some of the things that I dealt with in my own life. So, you know, it was easy to want to love them and want to have them.
Now you fed them so much they look like you.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. I swear. You're going to have to bring a picture of it. Yeah, apparently they do act like you. Oh, my gosh. That is so funny. That is so funny. You know, you think about Saul with David. It was every day he feared his life, or he fought for his life. I used to get mad in that story because I love the story of David, but I used to be like, dude, really? God, you put him in this place. You're the one that called him here. You're the one that put Saul in this. Like, something's not right. But when you look at the end and what he learned in that time, what he learned when he was fighting for his life, he was learning to lean on God, because there's nobody greater in the land than Saul. And if Saul wants you dead, you're dead, you know. But his life was spared all that time. And he was being equipped through the making, through the fire, through the rival. It's so good. And what if we started looking at all of our, I'm going to flip this over again. Well, let's look at this question. In what ways can you change your response to a rival and increase your grit factor? Because that's what I was just about to say is, what if we could start looking at our rivals as fuel? Not ammunition, not we're going to put it in our backpack to smack you with it next time.
Praise growers.
Okay. Cindy Autry says, Holy Ghost sandpaper. Mm-hmm. You know, rubbing those edges off. Mm-hmm. Those people just rub you good, but they're sanding you in the process and refining you.
I heard one about soft rocks. You know, you can get a rock that's really smooth and soft. Mm-hmm. The only reason it's like that is because it goes down the river and it's hitting and busting on and it's hard. It hurts. I imagine, you know, it's hitting and busting on every big rock that it goes down as it goes down the river. but at the end, it's smooth. But it took a lot of beating to get it that way.
That's pretty good. That's a very good analogy, because that's so true. It wore those edges off, not with sweet love and tender kindness and gentleness, it was knocking them down.
At the beginning, I was mean. When the first 2 years, I was mean. I was so mean. And just to get to the place where I could just bless you and walk.
Yeah.
And just like.
Okay, so you did this and you allowed it to grow you. And now your girls are reaping a mother who is not angry and bitter and ugly.
See, just like David, I was anointed to be their mom, but I had to have my own soul. She was my soul.
Yeah.
I was anointed for this, but I had to take a lot of beating for it to get that way.
And what you are raising up children that are going to be mighty strong women that don't have to battle the crap you battled, because you've done it for them. That I'm in a place right now where this book is pulling crap out of me left and right. It really, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you have to, let's don't do it all in one day, God, because it's a bit overwhelming at times. But I don't know if y'all have seen, some of y'all might have seen my Facebook posts and stuff, but I'm having to change some things of how I've done things for a long time. And the biggest thing I'm having to change is my thinking, because I've always been very ambitious. I can't say I've been guided and directed and on point, but my brain's been ambitious. Like, I can do whatever I want to do. I can get it done. So when I started walking with the Lord, I started taking on all these things that were good, godly things, but they weren't things that the Lord said take on. So it really started weighing me down. But my heart right now is torn between full-time ministry, and I love, and full-time mama that I love. And I'm called to, and I know that that's my season. But somewhere I had picked up some kind of crazy underlying, I'm being very, very brutally honest here, some kind of twisted lie of the enemy that I'm a failure for being a stay-at-home mom and focusing on my children. And my husband is like, I work so that you don't have to work, but all you've done is try to get a job. Doesn't even make sense. He's like, I understand it financially, we needed the job, and we've worked hard to be to the place where we don't have to have two incomes type thing. We live very meager. We live very simple lives, but we have customized ourselves so that we can create this life that we have. And then when we have it, I'm not happy with it. It's not that I'm not happy with my kids, because they're really awesome. They're weirdos. They're like little weirdos, but they're awesome weirdos. And so, I want to do it, but it's like as soon as I get home and I get focused on them, it's like I need to be over here doing this because this is productive, but this is not. And I think it comes from years and generations of being told that women can't, and they should be barefoot and pregnant type thing, and they should be home, and they can't do these things. And a mix of, because I kind of had one of those bra burning mamas that was like, had been hurt and scolded. And I've taken on her pain and I didn't walk her life, but I took her pain on as a young child. Like, I grew up in her bitterness. Mm-hmm. What you're sparing your children from, I grew up in it. And it became who I was. It became my label of, I'm this strong-willed woman, and screw you, I'll show you I don't need a man. I don't even need a man to get pregnant. They got in vitro and petri dish babies. I don't need you. That's just how I was raised. And now the Lord is showing me that's not your calling. That's not even biblical thinking at all. It's not healthy, but in this season, I called you to be the mom to these kids, focused on the mom to these kids. This is your calling. And, I get told so many times, reminders that our first ministry is at home. And the Bible even says a man that is not fit for the pulpit if he does not handle his household appropriately. Same way with a woman. You can't handle what you got at the house. You do not need to be up preaching to anybody. You just don't. Right. And that doesn't mean perfect, but it does mean you got to have a certain level of order. And I struggle with it so bad because somewhere I think it means I'm less than.
Do you not
What I
realize
should.
your value or importance in that calling as much as you do in the other?
That's the struggle. He tells me that exact thing all the time. He's like, you have put a value on helping others, because it's not about a pulpit. You know, I'm not seeking to be a preacher because I've never been. That's not my thing. But he's like, your desire to help other people, minister, not just preach, but to minister to other people, somehow has more weight and importance than ministering and raising your own children. And I'm like, when you say that, it sounds so horrible. Like, you horrible, wretched
Just
woman.
because you're kind of, with them all the time, that they get the same part of you, but in reality, they don't, because a lot of times you'll pour more effort into something else than you do with what's around you because you're around it all the time.
And you take advantage of, well, I'll get to him tomorrow. Elijah can do his lesson tomorrow because today I have to take this person to this place and I have to help this person. And my phone rings all the time. Not that I don't want to help people. My phone rings and text messages go off all the time of people going, my husband just hit me. I don't know what to do. And that's a 45-minute conversation that I'm like, Olivia, will you take the baby in there? I need to handle this right now. Huh? Make some grits. Yeah. But I mean, stuff like that happens all the time. But my issues are rooted in part of what she was talking about was having that, I think, approval from other people. I'm a good person if I can help other people. But how good are you when your whole family says, yep, she spent her whole life helping other people, but she wasn't there for me? What if my kids grow up like that?
And sometimes we have to realize that, in different seasons, we're anointing for them to be built up.
Right.
Because you're the one that's going to show them the way of how to seek him, how to know him, how to chase after him. They're learning that from you, from him. And if you're not there and doing your calling there, then they'll be missing out on what everybody else is able to receive from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. This study is just like showing these things. I mean, this isn't the first time, obviously, that me and Heath have had this conversation, but it's pulling it out. And I'm hoping and praying. I'm not trying to put a deadline on it, but I'm hoping and praying to come to a new resolve in a way by the end of the study. We got, 2 more sessions left. And I want us to not walk away and say, oh, that was a really good Bible study, and put it on the shelf. I want us to walk away and say, I'm forever changed by the way I view this, by the way I see myself, by the way I see my calling or my anointing or my reason and purpose on this earth. So I'm praying for us. I've been praying for our group, and I'm praying for me. I'm praying for y'all. I'm just like, because it gets a little heavy. But keep going. That's that grit factor. Keep going, because right now is the place where we should really be looking inward and going, okay, what labels are we dealing with? What are we saying about ourselves? What do we allow other people to categorize us in and stick us in the corner? Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about. Like, I'm like, they all the time trying to stick me in the corner. Yeah, exactly. But what if we start looking at ourselves like Patrick Swayze looks at baby? I mean, like we look at ourselves of value and purpose and say, wait a minute, you're not putting me in the corner. I have purpose and a plan. No. And if you don't line up with it, buddy, you got to step, because me and God got something going on, So, all right. Well, this should go through chapter 5. So if we can get caught up to chapter 5 next week, I think it goes over 6 and 7, or just 6. Do you know?
I think it's 6 and 7.
6 and 7.
4 and 5, and then 6 and 7.
I think it's a 2 at the time now. Yeah. But don't get discouraged if you're not, and all that good stuff. I'm sure that's my children calling me. And that's my sister. I figured my kids were calling me because it's 9:30 now. So, but we did get a little late start, so we're not too far over. But all right, guys, I'm going to end our recording. Melissa, I'm so glad you joined us tonight. And if you guys, anybody that wants to, feel free to chat in our chat room. It is completely just us on. I said chat room. Oh, that's an old school word. Maybe I don't have chat rooms anymore. But Facebook. group is private. So if y'all want to share, and I'd love to hear the stories and testimonies of how it's pulling out of y'all, because I'm being brutally honest with y'all. So, and now I'm going to upload it on YouTube. I have no shame. Anyways, all right. Good night, Miss Melissa. We'll see you guys later.